Hello, and on page 98, 10E, Vampire Stories, we read the text, The Vampires Return. They're young, they're rebellious, and they have a taste for blood. This description fits not only the characters in modern vampire novels, but also many of the readers. Some teenagers love vampire stories so much it's almost an addiction. But what is their appeal? Is it the plot or the characters? And why are they so popular with teenagers in particular, apart from blood? The modern fashion for vampire stories probably started in 1976 with the publication of Interview with the Vampire, a novel by the American writer Anne Rice. This novel and its sequels are known as The Vampire Chronicles, and about 80 million copies have been sold around the world. They are different from earlier vampire stories in one important way. Some of the vampires are likeable characters. For example, the main character Louis needs to drink blood to survive, but he hates harming people. There are two different sides to his personality, and many teenagers can identify with this. When the stories were made into a film, the part of Louis was played by Brad Pitt. The most successful vampire books of the last 10 years are the 4 novels in the Twilight series by Stephenie Meyer. The books are about the relationship between the female lead, Bella Swan, and a young, sensitive vampire called Edward Cullen. The first novel, Twilight, was written in 2003. When the author finished the final chapter, she wrote an epilogue, and then another, and then another. She realized she had enough ideas for more novels. That is why she wrote the sequels, and millions of teenagers around the world are glad that she did. They love the mix of fantasy, horror, and romance. The novels have been made into successful films too. Although Twilight is a 21st century sensation, in fact, the popularity of vampire stories is nothing new. In 1897, the Irish writer Bram Stoker wrote a novel called Dracula. 25 years later, the film director Max Schreck made the first vampire film, Nosferatu. The film was so similar to Bram Stoker's novel that his family took legal action against the film studio and won. The film studio had to destroy the film, but fortunately a few secret copies survived, and in the 1990s the film was seen again for the first time in 70 years. Like a true vampire, Nosferatu came back from the dead, and a lot of the familiar imagery of vampires which teenagers love, pale skin, black hair, red lips, dates back to the original novel and film. Horror stories are particularly popular with teenagers, and that is partly the appeal of vampire novels. But teenagers also enjoy the important themes, the fight between good and evil, or the difference between what you want to do and what you should do. For example, in the Twilight books, can Edward show his love for Bella and look after her, or will the vampire side of his personality win? These issues are interesting for teenagers who are just starting to face life's big questions about love, morality, good and evil. For teenagers in the real world, most problems aren't a matter of life and death, but they often feel like it. So, what type of text is this? Is it an article, a personal account, a short story, or an interview? Well, if you guessed A, then you're correct. It's an article. Number 3. We'll match the headings from A to F with paragraphs from 1 to 5. And there's one heading that you do not need, and that is D. So, A 21st century hit, is 3A. B, the first modern vampire books, is, let's see, 2B. C. Addicted to Vampire Stories is C1. D. We do not need. E. The original novel and film. E4. And finally, why teenagers love vampire stories is F5. Exercise number 4. Vocab. Find these words related to novels in the text. Then match them with the definitions below. So, 1. The people in a novel are characters. 2. Another book which continues the same story is a sequel. 3. A section of the book is a chapter. 4. An extra bit of story at the end is an epilogue. 5. The events of the story is the plot. And 6. The main girl or woman in the story is the female lead. We go to page 99 and we do exercise number 5. Complete the questions with the words below. Use each question word once only. Right, so number 1. When was Interview with the Vampire published? 2. Who wrote the Vampire Chronicles? 3. How many copies of the novels have been sold? 4. What did Stephenie Meyer write immediately after the last chapter of Twilight? 5. Why did Bram Stoker's family take legal action? And 6. Which themes do vampire stories often deal with? And in our workbooks, we do exercise 1. Complete the sentences about Twilight with the words in the box. And that's all for now. Bye-bye.